Hello and welcome to Aspen Affairs, the show where we dive into issues shaping our community and provide a platform for dialogue with local leaders. I'm Debbie Braun, president of the Aspen Chamber, and today we're focusing on the upcoming City Council election. Joining me are two great individuals who have stepped up to serve our community. John Doyle, Aspen's current City Council member, and Emily Kolbe, our first-time candidate with deep ties to our town. Before we begin, I want to remind our viewers that the election is scheduled for March 4th, early voting on February 18th, and I believe, if I'm correct, on February 10th they're mailing out your ballots. Participation in this election is crucial for our community. Today our format's going to be a dynamic discussion where we're going to alternate questions between our two guests, giving each of them the opportunity to share their vision for Aspen. So let's get started. Hello, John and Emily. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks,
Hello,
Debbie.
Yeah, I'm so glad that both of you are throwing your hats into the ring and really moving forward with public service. It is not always a fun job, so I just want to say thank you to start off. But really, I want to start with motivation for running. So, John, after serving as a city council person for the last 4 years, what motivates you to continue your public service as an Aspen City Council member?
I really think that the path the last two councils I've served on, because councils change every 2 years, have made certain progress in childcare, housing, and changing building codes, STR regulations, many other things like that. And I'm really excited to see how we can move the entrance to Aspen discussion forward and possibly get some shovels in the ground.
That would be nice. Emily, this is your first time running for city council seat. What inspired you to enter the race? And maybe just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I am excited to contribute to the community as a former school teacher, as a local business owner and operator, as a longtime community member. There's 3 generations of my family in this community. I'm constantly looking for ways to give back. And so I see this as part of that progression and evolution. And I've had people support me and come to me and ask if I'd be interested in running and to consider it. And I am.
That's
I think
wonderful.
I'm ready.
Thank you. We're going to start with the easy subject, the entrance to Aspen, because you know after 20-some years and 20-some votes, it's happening. I really feel like we're on that final descent. So, Emily, I'm going to start with you. Really, the city of Aspen, this entrance remains a contentious topic. What's your perspective on how the city should address this issue while balancing accessibility and environmental concerns?
Absolutely. This is definitely a hot button issue, and there's a lot of validity to the discussion around it, whether it's time saving, whether it's safety. The needs of the community are there. I just don't believe that we're using the right data set by utilizing the old information from the 1998 EIS. I think the council is moving in the right direction of getting a new environmental information survey or impact survey, the EIS. When we talk about environment, we're not just talking about the green space. We're talking about the elements and the assets and the systems of the community. And there are a number of elements that aren't included in that old EIS. And just to name a few, North 40, Lumberyard, Burlingame, the consolidation of the school campuses all into one space out at Castle Creek, the expansion of the hospital, the senior center, even the roundabout didn't exist at that time. There's a lot of elements that just that aren't part of the data set. I'd like to see those included before we make a decision. But once we take those into consideration, we should move forward on a decision for the entrance, for sure.
John, what's your stance on the best approach to improve the entrance to Aspen, and how do you plan to address traffic and community concerns?
I'll just start by saying the current configuration is not serving our community. In my eyes, we need a second bridge, not only for increased evacuation routes, but also just for the simple fact that we can rebuild the Castle Creek Bridge once we finish a second bridge. That will be the easiest way to move forward. I agree with Emily about the situation has changed dramatically in the last 26 to 30 years. And that's, I think, kind of why this council dragged our feet on putting the issue on the ballot in November, because we didn't think that an up or down vote was really fair to the community. That's why we are pursuing reopening the environmental impact statement so we can look at possible alternatives to the preferred alternative. I know the preferred alternative was chosen because at that time it was the best option out of 43 different choices that they looked at. But again, enough time has gone by. I think it needs to be revisited, and I think we owe it to the community to do that.
Yeah, you know, ACRA represents about 768 member businesses, and many of those employees are the ones that are commuting up and down Highway 82. The city did a survey, but it seemed like we only included City of Aspen residents. Do you plan to reach out to work with the chamber or work with the businesses? The thought of like a 4-year construction and traffic mitigation plan for the workforce really should scare all of us here in Aspen. So just wondering, both of you, kind of what your thoughts are on the workforce and how it's going to affect them. And are you taking them into consideration as you make these decisions?
Should I start?
Sure.
Yes, I do think that this the entrance to Aspen isn't just for Aspenites. It's for people that live all the way down in Parachute that commute here every day.
Visitors too, I guess, you know, coming up and over.
Exactly, and that's precisely why I am against any talk of refurbishing our current bridge into a 2-lane or 3-lane bridge, because if you read the details in the Jacobs report, there will be traffic delays, and they will be worse than what we're experiencing right now.
Right.
And I think that's going to harm our business. It's going to harm just the ability for people to go out from town to go out to Hike Highlands Bowl, or people that live out by Highlands to come into town and get groceries. That's I think the bigger impacts are on people who live down valley.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think?
I think there was a fantastic study done by the Aspen Institute, and it was called the Upper Valley Mobility Study. And that study did look at visitors, residents, and commuter impacts. And they went through an entire regiment for 15 months looking at the impacts of our transportation systems, and they made recommendations on improvements so that we can get to more sustainability, fewer passenger visits in their vehicles, and also to reduce the time in your vehicle, which allows you to spend more time either productively working or with your family or on other tasks recreating in our community. I think that it's important that we look at that study and take the recommendations to help guide what we're going forward with, because it is not just the Upper Valley. They just happen to look at that subset in order to get to some decision, to focus their plans and to address the problem. But yeah, like John said, it's a whole system problem.
A lot of people reference that the Institute and the planning and the recommendations. Can either of you tell me if any one of those recommendations have been implemented?
Absolutely, they have. The BRT is one of those really wonderful ideas. But what they were saying is that it wasn't any one that was going to get us across the line. It was looking at it as a system. It's about implementing things that are both carrots and sticks that are going to encourage people in order to move the needle. A 4-lane, actually, the one element from that study that they found that absolutely cannot improve traffic congestion is adding more highway lanes, period. You can't build your way out of this problem.
John?
I agree with that. I read the Upper Valley Mobility Study myself several times. I've talked to John Bennett extensively about it. There are a few things in there that I think we could look at implementing, like congestion pricing. It's just been implemented in New York City. We'll see how long it lasts with the new federal administration, but most of the things we do are based on precedent, and if it works in New York City, I think we can get it to work here. One of the things we're limited by is that it's a state highway, and CDOT has the ultimate control over it, so that kind of handicaps us somewhat. There are other components to the Upper Valley mobility study, like ride sharing, that could be implemented. And I agree, induced demand, normally when you build a highway to allow more traffic shows up. And that's a road I don't really want to go down, but this problem is bigger than just traffic. We know that the 4 lanes aren't going to improve traffic times, but they'll improve evacuation times.
I'll give you that in 10 to 15 years when it's built. But we do have to look at some things that are concrete right now. And there is a lot going on with our wildfire safety that is directly impacting our community for safety measures, whether they are pre-prescribed burns going on Sunnyside Trail and the Smuggler area, whether it's improving our green spaces in the green belt that protects Aspen, knowing our evacuation routes. I actually hope that the wildfire community and safety community does a better job of sharing what they're actually doing with the community so that there isn't quite the fear. But I don't think that we can look at a 4-lane highway that's going to take 10 to 15 years to build as a panacea for emergency egress now or next year or the year after. Maybe we need to look at fire roads. Maybe we need to look at alternative options. Systems are healthier when we have more options, more things to choose from than a single truncation into a community.
Can I add something?
I'd love that.
I was just at a Colorado Association of Ski Towns in Breckenridge from Wednesday night through Friday, and we got a tour of Breckenridge and their ski area, and from the top of the ski area, the former mayor of Breckenridge was pointing out what the Forest Service had done. They created clear cuts all the way around Breckenridge as a fire break. I would love to see something like that happen here. It's going to be much harder to do it here than in Breckenridge. But when I look around downtown, up at Smuggler Mountain, up at Red Mountain, up at Shadow Mountain, and I see all the dry fuel that's surrounding our town, it gives me concern.
Okay, well, let's try to go to a better subject now. What a lot of people are excited about and talking about, some people don't even know it's happening, but the Armory Hall. So, John, the historic Armory Hall project is significant for the community. What's your vision for its future, and how do you propose managing its renovations with the budget constraints?
Wow, this is a pretty nuanced question. Let me back up just a second, too, because this relates to the entrance to Aspen in my book. If we decide to go it alone and pursue the 3 or 2-lane bridge option and keep the S-curves, CDOT will not pay for any of that. That's a $200 million bill that we'll be on the hook for. And if that's what the community wants, I don't think we're going to have any money to work on the Armory at all.
Yes.
So Armory specifically, I have concerns about it. I like the renderings that have been presented. I want to make sure HPC gets to weigh in on the proposed changes before we move forward, because HPC's opinion is very important to me.
Did you guys fast track it out of HPC's, or is it still going through HPC?
It's, to my knowledge, we're getting HPC approval.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable moving forward without their approval.
Okay.
So I do have concerns about, I understand the idea of trying to provide cheaper food options than what are available to most locals. But at the same time, I'm sorry to say this, but the city hasn't had a good track record with owning or operating eateries, with all due respect. So I have concerns about the Armory and the direction it's headed. I do want it to be focused on a community gathering space. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to.
I think the misnomer out there is that it's going to be affordable. And I think some grab and go options will be affordable, which is great. I think we do need more of those in our community. But some of the bars and restaurants look like those are market rate. So I worry that we're calling it affordable, or people are thinking it's affordable, and then when it actually comes to fruition and it's not. And then I worry about the off seasons. I like to say, if you look at Clark's Market, you could use that as like a mini food court, food hall. They've got a couple restaurants, they've got Clark's Market, but you could go in the middle of off season and nobody's even in that smaller space. So I do know our restaurant members have some concern and want to be involved, yet there's so many other shiny objects right now, like the entrance and the housing, that I'm not sure that they're paying close attention to it. So I appreciate the perspective of maybe we should slow down just a little bit to make sure we get the right mix inside. Emily, as someone new to the government, how do you prioritize funding and design for the Armory Hall to ensure it meets community needs?
Great question. I would like to say John has a great perspective on the Armory, slowing it down. I'm very comfortable, even though my background is also in food and beverage. I think that our community, when we looked at the Post-it notes that people wrote on the cards during the collective community conversations, the number one word was community. And it would be lovely to refurbish that location in order to provide the gathering space, to have that opportunity to interact. But maybe it's an opportunity for our community to less is more. Maybe we don't have to put in as much. And the off seasons, our locals are looking for places to gather. There's a lot of events that happen, whether it's with sports teams or educational communities or art functions. They're looking for places to be, and it would be wonderful to have that opportunity for them.
I agree. I think it's going to be a really great messy vitality. I'm glad that the visitor center is in there. I think that'll drive traffic in, but I do like the concept and the idea of having our visitors and our locals commingling together. So switching subjects, because that's what we do here on Aspen Affairs. Biggest challenge for our membership, we just did an advocacy survey, it's affordable housing. Shocker. Second is transportation, but really the housing is really the big difference, or the big issue that businesses are trying to get their wrap around. So John, Aspen affordable housing challenges have persisted for years, right? So what are the key lessons from your time as a city council member that you bring to address, or that you can bring to addressing this issue to council?
Great question. I was just at a CAST meeting in Breckenridge, and it was interesting. When I first got on council, I thought I'd be going to certain meetings with other communities across Colorado, and they'd be like, "Oh, Aspen's here," the highfalutin people from Glitter Gulch. But it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
We are lauded for our efforts in many different areas, but especially housing, because we've been so successful. Because we've had such a successful housing program, we're now getting into areas that nobody really foresaw, like capital reserves and retirees, what to do when your workforce is aging. And anyway, it's super complicated, but we need more housing. That's why it's one of my top 2 priorities. And I would like to focus on development neutral and trying to build housing on the inside of the roundabout, not only to benefit our community, but to keep cars off Highway 82. And it's going to get harder because we don't have open parcels of land anymore to develop on.
Yeah. Since you were on council for the last 4 years, we put shovel into the ground on Burlingame 3.
Burlingame 3 has been completed.
And we've got work to be done, right, on,
The lumberyard is already being deconstructed as we speak. I was
Okay.
shocked when I drove by it the other day to see how much was gone.
do you know how many additional rooms that is between those two projects for housing for our community?
I believe 79 with Burlingame 3, and the final number hasn't been set on the lumberyard, but it's between 270 and 300. I think it's 277.
Yeah. You know, they say you can't build yourself out of the traffic problem, and I also hear that for the housing problem. But I do think there are some innovative, good places that we can put housing, and I do know our larger employers are banding together to build their own housing. I worry about the little guy, the little mom and pops that can't afford what the big, five can do. So, Emily, housing is a pressing concern. What specific policies or initiatives would you advocate for increasing housing options?
Great and difficult question. Housing, transportation, and congestion are all married. And
Well, let's throw in childcare too.
And childcare, yes, ma'am. They're part of our community, and having localized housing also builds a sense of community. If people can live and where they work and engage in their schools and feel interconnected and prosperous, that's what we want as the bedrock of our community. So it would be lovely if business owners had access in deed-restricted housing to buy properties in order to hold as part of their employee bouquet. That currently isn't an option. It would be excellent if we could utilize Habitat for Humanity's innovative, forward-thinking programs, like they're developing something of a factory, which is both for education and for production of prefabricated housing, but you can buy into that. You can buy priorities into their developments as a business owner, which allows you to have priority for your employees to rent those units. And when those employees move on, your priority still remains. So there's ways for the business owner, the community to fund Habitat, for other entities to support Habitat, and those are just a couple. But I would love to see smaller pocket developments. The lumberyard is fantastic, but I think areas like little neighborhood developments like Williams Woods is beautiful in our community. It creates a sense of interconnectedness and also a sense of scale that's embedded within the community, the neighborhoods, and it's quite nice.
Yeah. Well, we only have 5 minutes left because I can't even get to all my questions. But I wanted to just quickly ask both of you. Pickens County right now is working on their 2050 vision plan. And really a lot of progressive great things coming out of the 2050 plan. When was the last time the city of Aspen updated its plan, which I believe the counterpart's the Aspen Area Community Plan? And in your time on council, do you think that should be a priority, or do you think you have other really big things to be tackling, and the community plan will have to sort of wait a little bit?
I would say the last Aspen Area Community Plan, I believe, was written in 2012.
Correct.
And I think they try to update it every 10 years or so, so we are a little behind. I think it still is a very comprehensive document, and I would like to see us follow it closer than we have been. But do I think it needs an upgrade? Yes, I do. We've been told, council's been told, that obviously that's going to take a lot of staff time, and we've given our staff so much to do that they don't have the bandwidth or the full-time employees to take on more work like that. Hopefully we can slow some stuff down enough that we can rewrite the Aspen Area Community Plan.
Emily, are you familiar with the plan as well?
I am, yes.
And what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really important for us to have a 30,000-foot view of this community, knowing what we're aiming for, knowing how to get there and how to plan things to get there. So absolutely, we should update these. Our staff can do a lot. They're really talented people. They are working very hard on a lot of issues. But yes, I think that many of them would want to do this.
Great. Well, before we wrap up, I'd like each of you to share a closing thought on how you see your role shaping Aspen's future, and why should the Pitkin County City of, I guess it's City of Aspen voter vote for you? Emily, I'll start with you.
Great. I'm looking for the community to vote for me because I provide a perspective that is unique. I come from both a working background, a business background, an educator background. I am invested in this community from volunteering, board membership, my family's here. I want to see this community vibrant, and I want to have it feel like it's not just for tourism, it's not just for residents, it includes our commuter population, it includes every person who contributes, whether you're working here, visiting here, celebrating here. This town is for us. When my parents moved here, they came from a town that had a derogatory term for the tourists, and they called them fudgies because our area was known for making fudge. And this town doesn't have that. We didn't have that energy here. People who visited were celebrated, we had conversations, we rode single lines so that we could talk to people from different communities, so we could learn. I want to bring that energy back, that curiosity, that engagement, and the conversation. Yeah.
Great. John, why are we voting for you for a second term?
That's a great question. I think I've proven over the last 4 years that I care deeply about this community. I travel quite a bit during ski seasons, and I'm constantly comparing, and I've done this since I moved here. I've always tried to, whenever I go somewhere, I'm like, could I live here? And every time the answer is always no, because Aspen is the best ski town in the world. And it was just proven to me earlier this week. Sorry, Breckenridge. Anyway, we're on a path of doing some really great things here in Aspen, and believe it or not, I actually enjoy my role on City Council. Not 100% of the time, but more than 50.
More than 50.
Much more than 50. This community is really special. We've lost some of our vitality, and I'd like to regain that vitality. And again, like I said earlier, the state of Colorado is aware that Aspen is a leader on many different things: transportation, housing, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to keep my foot on the gas and make sure Aspen stays a leader in all these things and more.
Great. Well, as you all can see, both candidates bring a unique perspective and ideas to the table. Local elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, and your vote matters. So get out there and vote! Remember, the Aspen City Council election will take place on March 4th. Early voting starts February 18th, and you will see your ballots being mailed on February 10th. Make sure to vote, stay engaged in shaping the future of our community. Thank you for joining us on Aspen Affairs. I'm Debbie Braun, and I look forward to seeing you next time as we continue to explore the issues that impact Aspen businesses and the residents. Have a great day.